Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Welcome to what I believe is the 17th Streaming Media Connect event. It's great to be back and do this again after doing our in-person show in Santa Monica in October. And we've got a great event to start off with today, which is our keynote fireside chat with Rebecca Sirmons from NASA Plus. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. So I'm Steve Nathans Kelly, editor of Streaming Media and chair of Streaming Media Connect, and I'll be with you for 3 days this week, bringing you many of the streaming industry's best and brightest, with 3 days of action-packed panels and conversations all about live streaming. Um, so as with past events, we're doing a giveaway. As always, the first person to correctly name the tune and the artist we heard as we were getting started with the session will win a $50 Amazon gift card at the end of the session, but you must be present to win. Uh, as always, feel free to chat amongst yourselves in the chat and put your questions in the Q&A because at the end of the hour this morning, we'll be doing live Q&A with Rebecca. And so sessions from all 3 days of Streaming Media Connect will be on the Streaming Media YouTube channel next week, maybe even a little sooner. The link for that is in the chat. Um, let's see, closed captioning is on. Just click the CC button if you need to use that, if you prefer to watch that way. And we will be back here, right here, for Streaming Media Connect 2026, February 24th to 26th, discussing the business and tech of free streaming. The call for speakers is open, but we don't have a link for that yet. Hopefully, we'll have that later today or tomorrow, and the show site for that conference will also be available soon. So now let's get started with the event we've all been waiting for, our exclusive keynote fireside chat with General Manager and Head of NASA Plus, Rebecca Sirmons, who will be discussing streaming the universe with Streaming Media's own Nadine Krefetz. Welcome, Rebecca and Nadine. Please join me on the stage here. Hey, good to see you. Welcome.
Hello.
Great. Perfect. Thank you so much, Steve.
Okay,
And
I'm going to step
we will
aside here.
check in with you later. And we will also make sure we are staying on top of the questions. Rebecca, so good to see you again. We first chatted just to get some background for me. And previously, I wasn't like really into, anything space related, but now I'm just like, this is so incredibly cool. Okay, so what does NASA do when it comes to streaming? Because some people may not have an idea here.
Well, actually, NASA has been streaming for a while now. In fact, before NASA Plus, we were streaming like Facebook, YouTube, all of that. But NASA in particular, we launched NASA Plus in 2023. So it's been around for a couple of years now. But we
Mhm.
eventually, I like to say, weaned ourselves off of our linear network, as a lot of networks have been doing now. We cut the cord. I'm very proud of us. And now we're fully streaming. We're fully streaming the universe, everything from space flights to rocket launches, downlinks from International Space Station to original content. And so this is our way to meet the audience where they're at currently, which is streaming.
Okay, great. In fact, I can imagine that you have an audience probably in many places. Is it worldwide?
Yes, so we have a global audience, and in fact, that's kind of the exciting thing, right? NASA. I come from originally from the private sector. NASA is a government agency, right? We all understand that. So we don't have shareholders. We don't have we don't have to hit a certain amount, whatnot. But we have a global reach, which our mandate, Space Act in 1958 states that we have to reach the widest possible audience. And so we do just that, which means that no matter where you're at in the world, you can find NASA and you can watch NASA. And that's our main goal, is to try and meet people no matter where they're at, find space, be able to have access to space and make space for all.
Okay. All right. Now, in fact, since we kind of started off a little bit down the business path, I won't stay on this too long, but we talked about ROI.
Mhm.
So what does that mean in terms of what you are as an organization?
So for us, ROI, success, right? What does success mean to me and to NASA and to NASA Plus in general? The more people watch, the better, right? Our success is rooted in eyeballs. How many people we can get to watch? 650 million people streamed. Wow, I'm really jumping ahead here. Watched on CBS with Walter Cronkite, the moon landing.
Okay.
650 million people at once watched. Imagine that happening again in 2027, but yet people are streaming it. I would love to have 650 million people watch, but again, what would that do to us? What would that do globally to 650 million people tuning in at once? Now, obviously, I doubt we will hit that exact number again, right? That was back in the day when you had the big three and everything was kind of as tune-in TV. It was like, you sit down, everybody sits around the TV and watches. But for now, we are expecting around 250 million. And so how do we do that? Well, because our success is determined to reach the widest possible audience, we have to kind of think outside the box. We have to work with, our industry partners. We have to look at, ensuring success on the NASA side is that we will guarantee you a great feed and a great view and a great broadcast, but we'll need help sharing it with the world.
Right. And so that means you're distributing through partners?
Yes, we're distributing through partners. Obviously we have, I'm sure you've seen the news, we have partnerships with Netflix and Amazon Prime. We obviously do our stuff on YouTube. We work with, VOD partners like Canopy for some of our on-demand content. But as far as, we want to reach out to more partners to really take on this massive effort of sharing this story with the world globally. So again, we can guarantee it, but we would love to, ensure success globally.
So realistically, somebody can go to your app, but they can also go to a partner.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. And you do that, let's say, for load balancing reasons.
Exactly. You do it for load balancing reasons, but also it's the, I will say it's not just us that's doing it, right? A lot of people are doing it now because we all realize that streaming is hard. Streaming from space is hard. I like to say that, private sector wise, we're always worried about the last mile of delivery.
Right.
Well, with space, I'm worried about the first million miles and the last mile. In fact, there's a lot to deal with, right?
Okay.
Front to the, from the beginning to the end, and then also when you talk about, for example, latency. Right? Latency for us is like what, a millisecond industry. I'm worried about a handshake from, let's say, from a, edge server to somebody's phone in Brooklyn. Right. But for NASA, I'm talking about the speed of light, which is 1.3 seconds from the moon. That's your delay. Okay. That's your latency. So you take that, you factor in jumps, ground-based jumps. Ultimately, you'll get about a few seconds, 2 to 3, possibly 4-second delay. Now, on our end, we're trying to do as much as possible to reduce that latency, and we're doing it fairly successfully. So that's kind of overall what we're dealing with on our end.
Okay. Do you get feedback from viewers about the latency, or is that something that they don't actually think about?
No, because it's physics. We can't. We've literally pushed it as far as it can go with latency. The 1.3 seconds, that's speed of light. We can't beat that. Now, maybe in 100 years when there's, some sort of, who knows, but that's definitely a out of my realm of development. But I'll say that right there is the thing that's kind of, causing our, that initial 1.3 seconds is what what we have to consider.
Okay. See, for me, from a project management background, I'm like, well, you can't change that, so don't even worry about it.
Exactly.
But I don't want to insult the engineers by saying you can't change it.
The great thing, and I always say this, is coming from private sector and then coming to NASA, private sector, it's, it's a business, right? Like it's a product, you're building, you're making money out of it. Here, you dealt with a finite budget, right? You have to work with what you got. Period. Point blank. That's it. Like, here's your kit of tools. Build it, make it great. And NASA does that, and then they one up everything else. Like, it's like, whoa, we built the streaming platform with minimal resources based on everything that we already had in house. It was just a matter of organizing everything and making and really establishing some clear workflows and establishing teams. We have our app team, we have our streaming tech team, led by the brilliant Lee Erickson, who's been around for a while. We also have our web dev team, led by Michelle Wolverton, who's amazing. And then we have our live EPs at the locations who are coordinating everything and making sure the productions run smoothly. So it's a massive effort. We obviously have our content development teams, our programming teams, but this isn't like a 200-person team. This is like a maybe 10,
Okay.
So,
okay. What you easily talk about how it goes, but tell us like how it starts. Like you basically get a lot of footage coming in, and just walk me through a real loose workflow.
So let me break down a scenario for you. Let's say an ISS downlink. International Space Station. I'll try not to use acronyms.
I'll ask you when you are to tell me what they are, okay?
Acronyms, NASA loves them. They love a good acronym. International Space Station. Let's say we want to downlink imagery. Well, downlinking live 4K imagery from the International Space Station is actually very easy. We do it. We can do it. We can distribute it. We are now, thanks to our brilliant team at Johnson Space Center, we just rebuilt it to make sure that we can distribute in 4K. Up until earlier last year, it was 720. We could, I know. But thank God, right? Because we knew that Artemis was coming. We knew that people needed this to be able to see great imagery. So now, because of that, we're able to distribute in 4K. And that everything comes down. So there's ISS that comes down to Johnson Space Center. And then from Johnson Space Center, we have our kind of the ultimate remote production workflow. We have a team out in Marshall Space Center. It's the hub. It's our engineer. It's where our tech leads are, right? And they run our virtual master control room during a live event. We have our core. We have redundancies, encoders set up at centers across Goddard Space Flight Center, which is in Maryland. We have, obviously, Marshall Space Flight Center. We have Kennedy Space Center. We have several redundancies set up. So if one, for example, as I was talking with you last night, we had an issue. We bounced. We hopped. We literally moved on into a different setup, which was actually went from Goddard to Marshall.
Okay.
Completely remote. Because that's what we have to do now based on the infrastructure that we already have.
Now, so everything's coming down in 4K. Mm-hmm. You make it sound easy.
Well,
but it's coming by first. So you've got the satellite feed right first. So what exactly happens there?
Yes. So it comes down to our we take it down. Again, it's a direct downlink straight from the International Space Station, straight. So there's no it's one hop.
Okay.
And then it's one more hop from there to Marshall. And then it goes out to our core. And then that splits into, we have our SRT feeds that we get out. We have our HLS that we get out to our Akamai, for our apps and all that for our internal NASA Plus. We have our clean feeds that we get out to our, for example, the CNNs and, what have you. So that's pretty much workflow wise how we get everything out. Now, the ISS is a fine-tuned machine. It does sound simple now, but it was after many, 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 many years of them really building an infrastructure and even recently building it to where it can sustain 4K. and to where we can actually continuously stream in 4K. Now, when we're talking Artemis 2 and Artemis 3, again, our friend physics, that physics, you can't beat it. It is what it is. And as you were saying, it's like, okay, well, these are the parameters we can't, but again, with NASA, we try and push it. We try and see what we can do, think outside the box to try to get to X, Y, and Z. So with Artemis 2, we're going to have, and that's, it's no later than April of 2026. Our first launch opportunity is February of 2026. So this is the first time in 50 years we'll be sending a crew around the moon.
Okay. In fact, let me ask the question quickly, just because somebody asked about the codec, because I knew that they would. So
yeah,
they want to know what codec you're using, and then I'll continue with the Artemis conversation here.
Oh, yeah. So we're H.265 HEVC.
Okay, there we go. Okay, Artemis. So realistically, not everyone here might know what this is. So can you just give us a little bit of background?
Yes, absolutely. And apologies, I'm very excited about this stuff.
I know, and I'll just keep cutting you off and kind of go, could you just tell us? So
roll with me.
What is it? For anyone who doesn't know.
The universe is streaming right now. So Artemis 2 and the Artemis, the actual Artemis campaign itself. Artemis is, we're going back to the moon. So Artemis 1, we went out, we tested Artemis, the rocket itself. We tested it. There was no crew aboard last year. It worked wonderfully. Now there's Artemis 2, which is very similar to Apollo 8, where we test the crew, we test the vehicle. It's a test mission. So I want to be clear when people are, like, oh, why are they doing this and that? Or why isn't this, looking like this? Because we're testing all of these things, especially testing, making sure the crew is healthy, seeing how the vehicle, is working properly, making sure that everything is working properly to get us ready for the moon landing, which is Artemis 3. That's the big one. Everything's like a little step, right? And this includes comms. Bandwidth, not our friend. Bandwidth's nobody's friend. Let's be honest. We love it. We need it. We wish we had more of it. All of us. Unfortunately, things happen. And in space, we have our one pipe, right, of information coming down through the Deep Space Network, for example. In that pipe, video is our biggest payload.
Right.
And, live streaming video is our biggest payload. Within that, you also have to have crew health. You have to have comms. You have to have engineering comms. You have to make sure that everything is running, telemetry. All of that has to be funneled on top of everything that we see for the public. So we're going to have 3 key broadcasts for Artemis 2, where we'll have the great visuals, the rocket launch. We'll have the lunar flyby where you'll see the moon, just like that as I'm doing. And full sight will be the first time we'll see the moon that close in over 50 years. And then, of course, splashdown. We'll bring our crew home. So right there, that's Artemis 2. And then obviously Artemis 3, which is the thing that I'm honestly the most excited about, the most concerned about, the thing that keeps us up at night over here from a streaming distribution point of view, but also as an implementation, point of view, to make sure that we can execute this thing, provide the world one of the greatest feeds of all time, live streaming in 4K from the moon. That is a difficult task.
Yes.
But we are working with industry. We are, actively, we're proud members of the SVTA. We, we're constantly working internally to see what we can do to, again, via algorithms, via, we have suit cams, we have, cameras on, we have multiple camera sources on the moon, right? It's not just going to be, just a few shots and that's it. We're going to try to really provide people imagery that they've never seen before. We're talking deep blacks, deep whites. I want people to be able to see the science and be able to see, you know, what it looks like. Because back, you know, 1968, it was you know, it was a little blurry.
Okay.
You know? But it was pretty incredible. It's also black and white, very black and white. I don't, and I know this is kind of silly when we're talking about streaming professionals, but you know, if somebody, you know, from, you know, is saying, well, why is this black and white? I was like, it is it is black and white. Like that is what you're saying.
Oh, you're saying because there's no color.
No, there's no color.
There's no color.
No color. Like
okay.
it's difficult to wrap your mind around it. I mean, obviously I have not physically been there, but I've seen, you know, simulations, you know, where we're doing, you know, lighting. The lighting is extreme. The shadows. Oh my God, the shadows. You know, I could go on about moon shadows, but long shadows, right? Like we have to map out every, you know, shot, every perspective to make sure that people get the best view that they possibly can get on the moon.
Yeah, I was going to say, so how do you manage the camera feeds? I mean, because realistically, but NASA must be, you have video going on all the time, don't you? Like, do you actually have the astronauts actually pointing the cameras and kind of going?
Oh yeah, our astronauts, yes. And in fact, we have a fantastic team that's leading the handheld Hulk camera. And it's a Nikon D5, I think. It's a Nikon. I'm just gonna say it. Nikon handheld. And we're also, that one wasn't going to be live stream. We're actually going to see what we can do to make sure that one is live streaming as well. So that could be a handheld as well. We have live cameras on the helmets. We have live cameras set up on the craft itself or the lander. So there are different point of views, but yes, there's a lot of integration. And the great thing is it isn't like it's not just about sharing this imagery for the world, for the public, but it's also, I mean, ultimately, yes, that's my personal goal. But think about engineering cameras. Think about science cameras. Like all of these cameras serve different purposes at any, you know, different point in time. So it's really fascinating. You'll be able to see some things that you've never seen before.
Okay. Oh no, I'm sure. I mean, in fact, so you talked also about some of the, let's go hardware, software.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
Let's talk about that.
Okay. So I'm going to kind of jump back to what we were talking about. So private sector me, I would say software-based encoder all the way. NASA plus me, NASA me, knowing what I know now about radiation testing, about extreme environments, hardware-based encoders all the way. Why? Doesn't take as much power. They could be more ruggedized. They also, as far as, you know, you can depend on them more. Likelihood of them succeeding is higher.
Okay.
So that, and if you think about it, on the moon, you know, you're going on the most epic camping trip. You have to bring everything. You have to pack it all. You can't go back. You can't say, oh, I forgot, I gotta go, you know, oh, can you fix this encoder? You know, Rebecca's team. No, we're up here on the moon. We have to have reliable equipment. We have to have reliable tech. And so for us, it's risk mitigation, but also radiation. Radiation is something to really, to highly consider. Radiation on cameras, for example, the cameras on the International Space Station. You know, I'm sure if you watch one of our feeds, you'll say, why does it look like that? Why does that camera look so like almost like this red and green? It looks like Christmas lights, you know, in the distance. That's from all the pixels being fried from radiation. Like you can see it. It's and it's just from use.
Okay.
You know, and you can't really, you know, every couple of years, well, we're lucky. if a camera can stay up there that long, but sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, like you don't know. So we try to put all of our and put our encoders, our cameras into radiation testing. It's a lot to take on, but I do think that's something to be mindful of. These are all the restraints that we have to deal with.
Right.
Weight. Things can't be heavy.
Right.
Right. Mass. I mean, there are many things to think about, and it's interesting when talk to, kind of like sports, for example, live streaming sports professionals, and we are in a similar, we all have to kind of go to these environments where we're not usually at and stuff. But again, it's like that on top of this being an ultimate sports event, but on the moon. It's like, how do you pull it off?
Now, in fact, you also mentioned, I think, that some decisions were made a while ago.
Yes.
And that would because, so
right.
What do you mean by that?
Yes. So, so when you build, and again, private sector me coming to NASA, I was not aware of any of this. When I got here, I was like, well, why can't we just change it? Streaming, we need to do X, Y, Z. Like Rebecca, these decisions and these things we're building like it's about spacecraft. It's about the launch. It's about the vehicle. It's about getting crew safely. That is number one. And being 100% mindful. Yes, the camera is the mission. I 100% agree with that. We have to see it. But also it's doing that dance, right? And it's working with our teams to really come together and to see what we can do, think outside the box based on our requirements and the parameters that are set 13 years ago when the mission began, right? Because it takes a long time to build a spacecraft. It takes a long time to really to get, technology also evolves. Streaming tech, oh my gosh, has it evolved quickly in a very short amount of time. Yeah.
13 years ago. So what kind of choices would have been made then that you need to work
with? For example, just overall specs, I would say. Overall, encoding technology, at that time, like it was different. How we did things was different. We weren't thinking streaming. The idea of having a stream was not
right.
They would, but now we get to say, and thank God, and I will say, streaming engineers, period. If I've worked with you or with our team, and then our team in general, like they're really, they come together and really have to think outside the box because and it really makes our team, in my opinion, one of the most creative teams out there because we're stuck in this corner and we have to figure out how to get out of it, and it's kind of interesting. I feel like some of the best ideas come out of that and solutions.
Especially because you're essentially a science organization, a nonprofit. Yeah. You're not doing this as a business. Now, are you taking the same video feeds that would have been going just for the internal uses and using them externally?
So what we do is we pull in the best, like things obviously have to go through, export control and stuff and all that, but everything that's pulled down for public use goes through our control. We pick the feeds, right. And we put it into one distributed feed to be able to tell the story in a clear way. Usually has to do with like, oh, that shot, is a little off. Let's go to this shot, but the one thing that I'm very proud of, and I think it helps NASA kind of stick out in today's environment, is that we're 100% transparent. And I will say that, like what you see is what you get. We are not manipulating the imagery. We aren't, it's not AI generated. Like what you see is what you get. If there's any type of, AI as far as, I don't know, animation, for example,
right?
It's clearly not real imagery, but we do not generate AI imagery, period.
Do you have a problem with people actually thinking that it's generated, or do they trust what they're seeing?
I think a lot of it's interesting. I didn't realize until I moved here coming from LA, private sector coming here, I didn't realize that so many people did not believe in the moon landing. And I'm like, what? I grew up in Florida, love NASA. And it's one of those things where we just have to keep on telling our story. And to me, that's what makes our job even more important, right? Camera's mission. Show us, tell us, show and tell us that story, show us the reality of what's going on. I mean, we can guarantee that based on what we're doing and what we're setting. We're setting the standard.
Okay. I want to pop in here to a question. How do you optimize the latency while streaming?
Yeah. So we do. It's funny. I actually was talking to one of our streaming engineers last night about this because we drastically have reduced the amount of hops that we have on the ground-based side, because that right there will. But we do we basically we have a system in place to where it just goes from Johnson Space Center straight to Marshall. Like that's our hop. As far as from we have and it's different, right? Because from ISS and then Artemis, there's like different ways to where we can, but it really has to do with the most minimal feed coming down. It has to do with, we have our 1.3, which we factor in, but again, it's the reduction of hops. That's like the most basic way for us to minimize any sort of latency on our end.
Okay.
Now Mars, I mean, it's not 100% my assumption here, but that's like a 20-minute delay if we wanted to watch something from Mars.
Okay. All right. We'll get to that another time.
We'll focus on the moon for this one.
Okay. Someone also has asked about the live button on the website. So realistically, you've got live and you've also got on-demand content, right? So you're obviously not going to have something live 24/7.
No. So we have a fast channel on Amazon Prime, right? Curated fast channel on Amazon Prime. We can do that. So if we get a fast, I'm actually very pro getting fast channels out into the world. But we do not have a 24/7 NASA TV type channel anymore. Linear, not doing that anymore, out of that business. But yeah, we do have our on-demand content, and we do distribute, to, like, for example, Canopy, which is more of a sort of library-based nonprofit type, and then to Amazon Prime, for example.
Okay. A lot of people who in the private sector talk about personas, and they're targeting their content in different ways, or they're designing their applications. Do you want to run me down through any of the personas that you guys think about?
So for ultimately, and I'm a little biased. I always like to claim my bias. I have a daughter. She's 6 years old. So there is that Artemis generation, right? It's that inner kid in us all. It's that thing that makes us all excited about space. It's the person that I hope that whoever's watching this next moon landing wants to be on the other side of the camera one day.
Okay.
Right? Like, that's the persona. That's my number one goal. I want to hit that moment again. I want to bring that back. I mean, I do believe, I really firmly believe that we still have that, like, in us, each of us. I hope the people listening to this have that. But I want to double down on the Artemis generation, next generation, to really tell that story and inspire people to, for example, if you can be an astronaut, you can, you can be a scientist, you can, streaming engineers in space. Let's go, and create the new, the evolution of streaming tech and for NASA, like I want to inspire that next generation. And the other side of that, of course, is like the educator, right? The the person, the STEM obsessed, the those types, which is like the teacher that's like, hey, let's watch this from NASA, which we do have quite a few of those, which is also why we work with Canopy. And then, of course, ultimately, it's the fandom, right? It's the NASA fandom. It's the space fandom. It's the type of person that would, does Reddit, does Twitch, does, is interested in Star Wars, is interested in, the sci-fi nerd, like that to me is kind of the most generic, I would say. But ultimately, the next generation.
How are people watching this?
Great question. So, and I was looking at our numbers before we got on. So 35% of everyone is accessing NASA Plus, direct nasaplus.gov.
Okay.
The rest are watching on our app. Now,
So,
and then spread it out. Obviously, our partners, they only release so much information, but I'll say about 20% of that also is going to like the Amazon Primes and the Netflixes.
Okay.
So with more partners on board, I want to obviously grow that number.
TV, mobile?
TV.
TV.
Mm-hmm.
Good, because
And
you've got all that resolution.
Roku. Roku is the top offender.
Okay. All right. We have a question here about monetizing the content. It's not really your job, is it? Or is it?
No, we cannot make money. It's a free service. We are, funded by the taxpayer, and our job is to manage it and to equally work with, for example, why we have we're utilizing YouTube Player, for example, testing that and having on the back end for plus.nasa.gov to hit that 37%. But yeah, we cannot charge. We don't do ads. We don't do any of that. Because we want to make sure that this is, because of our Space Act in 1958, share our story to the greatest possible audience.
Okay. So does that mean that anyone else can monetize it or no?
No.
No. Okay. All right. That's an
No.
easy answer.
Yeah.
You've got, we talked about redundancy. We went into a little bit on the encoding. Do you want to share anything about your GOPS? Is that too private to ask you?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you also mentioned kind of a request to the vendor community. What would you ask?
Yeah. So this is obviously, as a civil servant, I can't say hey, make this or anything like that. And it's more of, but for me, this is, and in this conversation, what I hope to share this with everyone is that, yes, Artemis 2 will be a major streaming event, 25 million, most likely, but not that big, right? Big, but not that big. However, the moon landing is going to be the largest streaming event, in my opinion, of all. It's one of those things I'm hoping for, but also not hoping for, but to prepare for that, what are some things, we need to be mindful of? Also, just situational awareness in the community. Like, here are the challenges that we're dealing with. We have a working group with the SVTA to kind of deal with some of these technical issues and to really share what we're into the weeds on. So that to me is the biggest. I would say, just overall, industry-wise, we are moving into space. The space economy is huge. Start thinking about that. Like, well, yeah, should we be aware of radiation testing? Should we be aware of, hardening, ruggedizing our encoders more? What will the future look like? We're going to the moon. We're going to stay. So what is that going to look like? Would I love for there to be a mult box on the moon one day? Yeah. I mean, that would be amazing. But again, that's just from from an innovation standpoint.
We're talking a lot about live. Is there anything about on demand you want to talk about? Because people do
Yeah,
on demand content.
So yes, so thank you. So with our, yes, live is kind of is the thing, but equally as such, our our documentaries, our videos on demand, those do exceptionally well, and now it's almost half and half as far as success rate, as
Okay.
far as viewership. So one of our big ones, and I will always tout this one, but Cosmic Dawn, this, where we took 25 years of archival footage because NASA has to, records everything. So we had 25 years of archival to go through. The development of the James Webb Space Telescope, which is that telescope that creates these amazing images that we've all fell in love with over the pandemic. That story was incredible. And NASA was they were the only people to be able to tell the story. The great thing about NASA Plus is we already have like in-house creatives here. We have, the scientists, we have people on hand to be able to tell these stories. So this was really a labor of love, but it was also, we had all this material already here and we just organized it in a way to make it an excellent documentary. And that documentary is done incredibly well. So, and it has been distributed.
It's interesting because when you mentioned all this footage that you have, I mean, I think that must be an amazing source for the the LLMs
Yes.
for training.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We have tons of content. In fact, Avail, which is and I'll drop the link in the chat, but Avail, AVAIL, we love our acronyms. But that's where you can access a lot of our content to use for, such as for testing and whatnot. But it's a great source for archival if you want to do a deeper dive to for some of the, historical stuff. We have content at Johnson Space Center. We have content at Marshall Space Center. Ideally, one day I would love to have more of a centralized archival setup. We're getting there, but of course that takes budget.
Okay. All right. Here's a couple questions that came in that look like we can talk to. Do you plan to integrate VR AR to visualize future missions?
I would love to, but not right now.
Okay.
I hate to say it like that, but
Nah,
is what it is. What we have on our hands currently is plenty.
yeah. Okay. How about how do the missions, production, engineering, and the distribution teams coordinate to synchronize a live event of the scale? Back channel stuff?
Right.
What would, give us a
Yeah.
insight
So
there.
we have we have our EPs of live, which are kind of our, for example, they lead the charge on the production side. On the NASA Plus side, make sure that they're brought in the loop. We have our distribution. We have we have our several meetings throughout the week that we meet up on. One is more of a NASA Plus tech call, which I do include production in as well. And it's where our app team connects with our web team. Our web team, I'm just forcing our teams to talk. That was kind of one of the things that we started when I got here, because I was like, we all need to be more integrated. And then once we go through our live calendar, because live events change all the time, right? Coordinate, when is it going to happen? Okay. We work with Lee Erickson's team, the head of live streaming, and then they coordinate with the centers to pull off a live broadcast to make sure that, we're all set for the workflows. But every event, we build a workflow. We make sure that there's a flow set, it's guaranteed, it's tested. And then we always have multiple redundancies. We have about 3 redundancies consistently for each live event.
Okay. And again, are you using any of the, sorry to keep asking you this, I'm just trying to visualize how things work in space.
So easy. Totally joking. I know I'm making it sound much
You are
simpler.
making it sound easy. And as I've been watching this stuff, yesterday I was watching and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing to watch this. And it's not something that I would have normally thought about. So, and yesterday, we were talking about this earlier. So it was what was it? The Russian landing? Okay. So basically they took the 3 astronauts who had been on the moon and brought them back.
ISS, not the moon.
An ISS.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
But yes.
that just being able to do that seems and to see it is amazing.
Yes. And that like it's so important. And NASA, that's why I go back to transparency. We film everything.
Right.
We can't get out to the public quick enough. You know, we want to go immediately out to the public with our live feeds. And I'll say, you know, special shout out to Rob Navius, who's the voice of NASA. He's been around for a long time. He's one of the people you'll hear during his broadcasts out of Johnson Space Center. Like the work that goes into each live broadcast, whether it's a you know, just a ISS downlink, you know, to, you know, as you were referencing a splashdown, you know, with Johnny Kim last night. Well, earlier this morning, I was up to 1 a.m. and we were working this. But he, you know, landed safely and it was all wonderful. But it's a lot, you know. I mean, this was a 9-hour plus workload on our streaming engineers, right? We all work in shifts to make sure,
right.
From beginning to end. Then it's all, you know, from when you're, you know, leaving ISS all the way down. Like we're tracking the entire journey to share that, you know, with family, friends, as well as the public.
In fact, so it was shown to the public for different periods of time, but it was otherwise on all to you all the time, obviously. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And what we do, like when we get imagery, we want to make sure we get it out as, you know, there are times, there are blackouts, right? Like that happens. Again, our friend physics.
Because you're in space?
Because you're in space.
Okay.
You know, dark side of the moon, like when we go around the moon, there's going to be a point to where we cannot, because there's like the moon's blocking it. Like you can't, there's no way. Now, one day there might be a cell tower over there we can ping off of, but not right now. So it's just, you know, keeping in mind that there are points to where we don't have a full video view, live streaming view.
Okay, let me go back to a couple questions. There's a short one and probably a slightly longer one. Isn't NASA imagery in the public domain?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Okay. As long as you, as long as, and I'll drop, maybe if Stephen, you're amazing. Maybe you can drop the, or I'll drop it, the brand partnerships guidelines. So that way it's that, so that way you're not like making money. Cause again, we're, you know, for the public good, right? Funded by the taxpayer. We don't make money and people can't make money off of us.
Right. Okay. Here's a slightly longer one. When developing NASA Plus, how did you approach the buy versus build versus partnership?
That is a really good, thank you for asking that. So when I first got here, step one, because I needed to see how everything was currently working in the NASA TV infrastructure. I think that was key. I had to start somewhere. There wasn't nothing in there. There was something, but I had to figure out who was doing how was everything being communicated? How are we already currently integrated into a network and so I put together basically like a network operations manual and how we work with each other based on the current state of affairs. Then we started talking about, okay, what do we need versus what do we want? What's fiscally conservative? What can we do with what we already have? The great news and the big reveal is, and news to me, thank God, was that we already had a streaming infrastructure. We already had it. We just needed, for example, one of the main things when we ended, you know, we were using, you know, we're on satellite. We ended that relationship. We moved into AWS for a virtual master control room. Like that was a big move, and people were concerned. And I was like, no, this is, and it actually helps us now move quicker. We're fast, and we can turn things around in a dime. And it's the way to go for us, for our use case. I do think that for, you know, based on experience, the willingness of our engineers, you know, the fact that they've been around for so long at NASA and they're always willing to learn and to grow, but also very humble. Like they don't say, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. They don't say no. Like a special shout out, our old EP for live, Sammy Aziz, and our one of our streaming techs. I just won a Emmy, for technical innovation for the solar eclipse broadcast. Right, that was the first. That was a big deal. It was actually our first live event test on NASA Plus, which was kind of funny. Nobody knew that. I was secretly crossing my fingers that it would work, but we did it, right? Ron Gonzer was the guy who accepted, who's one of our streaming engineers, has been around for a long time. But this team, they don't say no, right? And I think ultimately it's like, okay, here's what we want. How do we get there? And just coming together and really figuring out what do we already have and what can we do? And again, it's that putting us in a box where we have to be creative, It's interesting. I mean, it feels like kind of, you're forced to make a decision, and once you make that decision, there's no turning back. Like, it is what it is. You just have to commit.
Now, I also have previously done a lot of government work, so I know that there's certain things about vendors that you won't talk about, which we have gotten a few questions on, but it's the government side of things is different than the private sector. And people are asking a bunch of interesting questions. Someone else asked about real-time monitoring systems for the direct transmission failure.
So we have set up, and again, I can't, I did mention AWS, but that's kind of, we do talk about that a little bit in Akamai, but I will say that, yes, we do have real-time monitoring with our team over at Marshall. And how it works is that I'm a civil servant, and then there's contractors, and our engineering team is mostly filled with contractors. And our head of streaming tech is Lee Erickson, who is is a contractor as well. So he can have more of those direct conversations. I cannot, but thank you for clarifying as well.
Okay. Is there anything else that you can talk about in terms of what distribution coming up that is already in the works?
Well, I do want to hit this question because I see that Matthew Keys noted about the monetization with Netflix and all that. Absolutely not. No money is exchanging hands with any partner or anything like that. In fact, it's how it was even before. It's just with streaming, as we all know, there needs to be paperwork involved, like to do distribution, but if there didn't, we would just hand them a feed, and it's up to them. It's up to Netflix what feed they want to take and air. It's the same as us giving CNN a feed, or, that's it. So it's the same setup.
So realistically, somebody can go to NASA Plus, or they can go to elsewhere.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I'm not offended if you don't come directly in NASA Plus, but I would love for you to watch NASA Plus elsewhere.
Okay. Anything else that you want to touch on that we have not quite gotten to? Because this is a big kind of, there's a lot of people involved overall in NASA, but you said you have a smaller team. The mindset between running a smaller team and kind of like what keeps people motivated, is there anything there that?
So, I think like last night was a perfect example. Our, there were 3 broadcasts up until the splashdown, Johnny Kim and Roscosmos, the Soyuz last night or early this morning. So it started at like 4, a change of command ceremony. Then it was, leaving ISS, and then it's splashdown. So all night our team was together, and we all have our particular roles that we play, right? We have our programming team. Everybody kind of we have a point. But I do think because of working in these smaller teams, and I think it's like, I hate to say it, but like industry wide, it's happening. Like, it's the reality. Like, no matter what, teams are shrinking. For me, the plus side is that interpersonal relationship. Like, the team's not so big that like people get lost in the weeds. Like, you get to develop these relationships, you get to figure out how people work, and it's just, as because we're doing this massive thing with a smaller team, we can really work together to problem solve. Like last night, literally a few minutes before one of our encoders went, we had to completely, go to one of our to redundancy, and it was a few minutes before we were going live. We were sweating, but we knew that it was being handled, and we knew exactly what was going on, and it all came together. And it was all because I feel like because we're forced to all work together as such a small unit. Like the weight is not carried by just one person, and it's also not carried by nobody. It's like we all carry an equal weight. If that makes any sense.
And as an organization, is there any time where people have unrealistic expectations in terms of what you can do in streaming?
Well, streaming is so new for NASA as far as on the NASA Plus side, right? Or like people assume like and kind of going back to the to what I was talking about with like our partners, like is this going to be on Netflix? And I was like, well, I can't promise that. I mean, maybe they'll take it, maybe they won't. I don't know. That's up to them. Like legally, that's up to them. We just have the ability to share it with them and the ability to distribute it. But I think that's kind of a thing to share is to internally is to share those parameters and educate because people don't know.
Okay.
But that's really it. I think our team does a pretty darn good job of like managing expectations. I think that one thing that I always like to be 100% about is where streaming is hard. Streaming is hard. Streaming in space is very hard.
Right.
And it's I like to say it's a double negative, but the team that can pull it off is NASA, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're bringing the best stuff in. We try to share the best imagery with the world. At times, things can happen. You have solar flares. You have things that happen in space. You have things that happen that we have no control over. And I think grace is a thing that that I always like to give to our team because there are things we cannot control. Right.
Okay. I'm going to wrap it there because we're out of time, but obviously people can go and look online and download your app and continue to watch some of your live and on-demand events. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, bye.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you,
Rebecca.
Steve.
Thank you, Nadine. Yeah,
Thank you.
this has been so much fun. And honestly, this is one case where like I wanted to book this keynote just so I could watch it,
Okay.
just because I knew how great it was going to be. So
Excellent.
thank you so much. Just a small bit of business before we go. The walk-up music that we heard as we were getting started here was Walking on the Moon by the Police, probably a little on the nose for this keynote, but and the first person to identify both the artist and the track correctly was, and I hope I get your name right, Fabian Diaz Granados. So congratulations, and Fabian, you should receive an email within the next week or so telling you how to claim your prize, the $50 gift card. And I've already had requests about this. This keynote will be on our YouTube channel very, very soon, possibly by the end of the day today. It'll be front and center, so you'll know where to find it. And we will be back at 12:30 Eastern Time, 9:30 Pacific for Skins in the Game, personalizing the live sports experience. So I hope we see you back here for that. Thanks again, Rebecca and Nadine.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.